big picture wise, we're talking about outsourcing. How will that fit? I've warned you about all the bad that can happen. I've warned you about all the good that can happen. It really is out there, and you have to really pay a lot of attention. You have to really start thinking strategically. The computer that I'm using right now to record this video is actually a gamer's computer. It's big. I deliberately got that instead of a highly integrated computer because of the fact that if something goes wrong inside of it, or if I wanted to upgrade it, I can actually just pop the back off and do it myself. The components are larger, they're easier to use. You don't have to have a special tool, they just have plug-in modules in it. It is deliberately designed to be a modular product for potential upgrading. So that being said, I can combine different components. I can add different things to it. Really, if I were manufacturing it, I can just grab this over here, give the power over here. I can grab this memory over here. I can grab this, and it's all totally interchangeable. They could be made by different companies, and they would probably pretty much put them inside the machine, and it would work. It is a totally modular machine, and it's deliberately designed to be exactly what it is, a modular machine with interchangeable components because of the fact that there's standard interfaces that are used. Sometimes you have an integral product where the components are functionalities, they're tightly related. Some of the Apple computers, especially the smaller ones, your iPad, they're so integrated, everything is almost fused on the inside, and it's almost impossible to change things out unless you really are a professional. If you're somebody like me who's not, who just dabbles a little bit, okay, they're past my skill set. But the reality, they're past the skill set of a lot of regular places unless you send it right back to the factory. They're not made from off-the-shelf components. They really, the system, they have a top-down design approach. You must only use Apple from this point forward. And so that they kind of capture you there, and you can't interchange it. Their components, they perform multiple functions with the same individual component because they're all turned into one thing instead of being separate modular components. So it depends what you're doing, and that is going to enter into your decision as to whether or not you're going to outsource. If you want to, if it's a modular project, really, if your knowledge is risky, you don't know what's really out there, then you have a problem with that. Outsourcing can be an opportunity if it's modular, and then really the aspect for independent knowledge and capacity is an opportunity to reduce your costs. If it's integrated, you have a major risk if you think about outsourcing. You can only outsource a few small components unless you outsource the whole main part of it. Then all of a sudden you have a problem because then you're not in control of it. If it's independent for knowledge, dependence upon capacity, outsourcing is an option for integral. And then really, by the time you're all done, you probably want to not outsource something that's integral and have, so otherwise you lose full control of the aspect. Some of the decisions, we actually have about 5 different areas to look at as to how critical it is. You can see the wisdom of Toyota in the process of, they own the engine. Well, the engine is the heart of the car. They outsource other components to that, but the engine is the heart, so they have that. And on top of that, Toyota has a lot of knowledge about the transmission system in the system, but body work can be done almost by anybody, so they have a lot of outsourcing on that aspect of it for assembly. But you got to make certain the components really line up properly and you trust them. So the customer importance, how critical is it? Okay, and then what kind of impact does it have on the customer experience? How fast can you get it? That clock speed, tick, 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 that's always sitting out there in that supply chain. And you have to make certain that all the components, there's a hum certain to the whole aspect of from the raw materials all the way through the whole system. Is everybody humming in the process at the same tune, or do you have somebody squeaking a little bit in the process? So how fast is the clock speed? And if you outsource something that you could outsource, will it actually speed up your process and maybe have a faster turnover rate of things on your shelf? What kind of competitive position does it have? Um, do you have a lot of competition? Do you have, if you outsource it, will there be an assembly line kind of like you had with IBM and Compaq, two of them side by side, and then them swapping components occasionally if they feel like it, or your intellectual knowledge being lost in the process? Okay, what about capable suppliers? Do you have a lot of them or just a few? If you have a focus in, I want American made only. Okay, well, can you really do that? Are there only 2 companies in America that can actually do that? Or should you really consider that outsourcing? What kind of architect are you having? If you made some modifications to your design, is it possible to have some components modular and some integral, and that way you can use the best of both worlds? Have your lower technology components modular, and then have your super high-tech components be an integral that only you touch and only you make. A little bit like Toyota handles only the engines and nobody else touches it. It depends what you want. And here's an example of some decisions as to what on the customer decision. Okay, if it's really important, the clock speed is a big thing. Okay, if you need it fast, okay, here you have example one. You have a whole different thing. So the series of different examples here is laid out for you, but you also have something laid out for you very similar in your textbook as well. A lot of time, the impact of procurement on business performance is a big deal. Once upon a time, procurement was just a clerical duty, but now it's a major player in the entire world of the whole supply chain management. Here you're talking about profit margins. Okay, it depends on what business that you're in. Pfizer, Dell, and Boeing, three totally different aspects. Okay, Pfizer really is a matter of a drug company. Dell is computers. Boeing is really aerospace and really planes when it comes down to it. So you're looking at the difference in profit margins, although you wouldn't believe Boeing would have that much, especially in the military wing, but this is what they're saying over here. So reducing procurement costs by 1% on all these would be translated into the bottom line, that net profit. So if you can shave 1%, and that's not a lot, all of a sudden now you're boosting your profit. To achieve that, the Pfizer would need to increase its revenue by 4.1. So you're looking at that aspect, Dell by 20% and Boeing by 35.7. So the smaller the profit margins, the more important it is to reduce those procurement costs. Let's go back. You're talking about really reducing procurement costs by 1% of revenue. All of a sudden, look at the huge impact on Boeing with that teeny tiny profit margin 2.8, boom, 35.7. So if you are in procurement and you save that kind of money, all of a sudden now you become the hero of the corporation. Pretty cool place to be. Really, the different strategies, really the types of products the firm purchases, the level of risk, how much uncertainty is involved. It just depends on the industry because every industry is going to be different. Another strategy is how can the firm develop a purchasing strategy? This should be thought about because really, a lot of times this is kind of pushed over into the back corner, except it shouldn't be. You should be looking at this as a critical component to the supply chain because that procurement can actually shave dollars off and even sit down and have an impact on your overall inventory if you play your cards right. So the capacities for successful procurement function, okay, depends what you're at. We had a guest speaker in our class. She knocked 68% off the 62% off the overall procurement. That's a huge savings cost, and they actually increased their profit margin in the product, and they develop a long-term partnership. So what are the drivers for effective procurement strategies? Pay attention to all these to see how it is. Strategic thinking, it really, you're thinking big picture. Normally, when you're talking in management, strategic thinking is 3 years plus, and then tactical is 1 to 3, and operational is 1 year and less. So big picture, look as to what is best for your company, especially on this aspect of outsourcing, modular, really integral between the two, and then look on the 5 parameters that we have. Customer importance, the clock speed, the competitive position, the capable suppliers that are out there or not out there, and the architecture. Can you change the architecture? Start thinking big picture wise as to how you can use this concept of outsourcing to your benefit and not to your demise in the process as well. So think big picture, and long term, you'll be better off. And by the way, thinking big picture doesn't mean in 3 years plus, you'll be 100% accurate. Big picture is 3 years plus, you're 80% accurate. So perfection is not required for 3 year plus thinking. Perfection is required for the operational aspect 1 year less. But big picture, think what is out there and what you're shooting at. And can you sit down and find a way to save money using outsourcing, but making certain outsourcing is not part of your demise? Take care.